J. Stapleton Roy is a former ambassador to China and currently a distinguished scholar and founding director emeritus of the Kissinger Institute on China and the United States. And he joins us to discuss the president's trip to Asia. Stape, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
The headline will be the 10-year agreement with the Philippines on security. So why don't we start there? What is the significance of this agreement?
It's a symbolically important agreement because it dramatizes the fact that the United States intends to remain in East Asia in a position to check and balance the rise of China, but certainly not to contain it.
Now, almost as quickly as the U.S. announced the deal, the U.S. and the Philippines announced the deal, China was quick to hold a bit of a press conference and say that we're going to take a wait-and-see attitude about what this means and not overreact.
Well, I think that's a very wise approach. China has overreacted to some of the actions that we have taken in the past, and I think it would be a misinterpretation of what the president's trying to do.
Now, and the four countries visited, not on the list, China. And yet, many people look at the trip to Asia, and the first thing they think about is that this trip is about China. Is that fair? Is that about the U.S. sending a message to China about its intentions in the region?
Actually, the trip is about our friends and allies in Asia. But China is the backdrop for the visit. So you can't say that China is not an important factor in the trip. From the standpoint of the timing of the trip, it's not the best time for the president to have gone. We're in an advanced stage of the negotiations with Japan on a Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. They weren't able to nail it down. Usually you would time a presidential trip so that the president
could announce good news.
He could announce good news in Japan. Relations between our two close allies in Northeast Asia, the Republic of Korea and Japan, are very tense at the moment. They're not getting along well. Again, a reason perhaps to try to patch that up a bit first. But the president was smart to go when he did, because tensions in East Asia are higher than they should be. Countries in the region are concerned as to whether the United States is showing sufficient attention to the region, and the presence of the president and the agreement with the Philippines both reinforce the rebalancing strategies message, which is the United States is going to be in East Asia to stay.
Is the source of the tension, the primary source of the tension, China's activities in the South China Sea?
No. The source of the tensions at the moment is the territorial disputes between China and five of its neighbors. And
so South China Sea is just a subcategory of that. It's a larger
These
dispute.
are territorial tensions, and to blame it all on Chinese activities is not a balanced way of looking at it. The U.S. position has been to oppose provocative actions by anybody, and we don't recognize any of the claims. In other words, there is a confused international law picture as to whom these islets should belong.
Yeah. Now, it makes our allies in the region feel better that the United States is standing with them. But is it confrontational as far as China is concerned? Does it increase the odds of tensions increasing between the U.S. and China, or does it set the table for better cooperation between the two?
We don't want provocative behavior by our friends and allies in the region. But on the other hand, we have defense alliances with Japan, which extends to the Senkakus because we recognize Japanese administrative control over the islands, and our defense treaty covers areas administered by Japan. And in the Philippines, we have a defense treaty which brings us into play if there's an attack on Philippine ships or aircraft anywhere in the Pacific. So therefore, we are not a disinterested party in this, but we are using our influence to emphasize the need for peaceful resolutions of these issues in a manner consistent with international law. And I think that's the right position for us to take, and it's a non-provocative one.
Final question is about taking the current temperature of the U.S.-China relationship. How is it doing right now?
It's a very complex relationship. In some areas, it's going ahead very well. In other areas, there's rising mutual suspicion. And so therefore, you can't summarize it easily in one or two words. But on balance, we have a lot to work with in dealing with China. China has a big stake in having a decent relationship with the United States. I think the good diplomacy can keep our relationship with China not contributing to rising tensions in the region.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Roy. And we can deal with complexity here at the Wilson Center, so we appreciate your nuanced answer. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Appreciate it.